Welcome to the Manifestation Babe podcast. My name is Catherine Zinkina, and I'm a manifestation expert, master mindset coach, and multiple seven-figure entrepreneur. I'm obsessed with helping you achieve everything that you once thought was impossible. If you're looking to massively up-level your life, your finances, your relationships, your productivity and success, then you have come to the right place. My goal in this podcast is to help you see the infinite potential within yourself to be, do, and have anything that your heart desires. Think of this podcast as your weekly dose of mindset development to help you maximize who you are and where you're going. Leave it to me to provide you with the tools, the resources, the strategies, and teachings that you need to manifest a reality wilder than your wildest dreams. I know we're about to have so much fun together, so thank you so much for pushing play today. And now let's begin. Hello, gorgeous souls, and welcome back to the Manifestation Babe podcast. Today, I have a special guest here with me, again, virtually, of course, Sabi Kerr. Sabi is someone I met actually in beautiful Bali back in 2019 at my own retreat where Sabi was our yoga instructor. Sabi is someone whose beautiful energy just exudes love and compassion. And every single one of my retreat attendees fell in love with her. And I know you will fall in love with her too. And here's some really important things that she wants to share with you guys today. Sabi Kerr is a self-love expert, self-love coach, and yoga teacher. She guides women to fall deeper in love with themselves and release the blocks that they have to feeling worthy so that they can create magical lives full of passion and purpose. Through one-on-one coaching, workshops, yoga, retreats, and group programs, Sabi's mission is to guide as many people as possible back to their natural essence, a place of deep self-love, self-acceptance, and joy. Sabi, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today and sharing your work, your time, and your energy with us. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really excited to be here to talk with you. It's been a while since we last saw each other, so super excited.
I know, I'm so excited. And you are tuning all the way in from the UK right now.
Yeah, I'm in London at the moment.
Which is awesome. Let's just start off with, can you just tell us what it is that you do, how you got started? I know you're multi-passionate and have like a fascinating history with how you got on your journey. And more importantly, like why you do what it is that you do.
So I'm a self-love coach, and among many things, I always say these are just labels. I'm a yoga teacher, I'm a dancer, I'm a human, I'm a friend, all of the things. But for me, self-love really is the glue that ties everything together. And I guide women to fall deeper in love with themselves, because that is the space from which everything else starts. You know, whatever it is that you desire, whatever it is that you want to manifest, it starts from feeling like you're fully, deeply worthy of that thing, but also worthy just as you are right now. So it really is, it's such a beautiful place to guide women to feel that, to know that they don't need to be fixed, they don't need to completely change. And yeah, it just brings me so much joy to work with people, to allow them to experience what that can feel like.
Amazing. And how did you get started with this? I know that you didn't come out the womb a self-love coach.
Yeah, totally.
You have a little bit of a journey, like as far back as you want to go, as far back as relevant. Yeah. Just how did your journey interweave into what it is that you're doing today?
Yeah.
And how the hell did you get to Bali is another question.
It's a good question, because actually the different things that I've done are such an important part of my journey. I've always been quite multi-passionate. I've always liked to explore. I was super academic at school, and but I also love dancing. And I was like, do I go and study something really, really academic at university, or do I dance? I did a bit of both. I did a short dance course at a college. Then I went to university and studied economics, like one of the top unis in the UK. So I've always had this like, shall I try out this thing? Shall I try out that thing? And I think a big rule for my life is to follow your curiosity. And whenever I feel that like tap on my shoulder, that's like, that feels right, there's something there, then I know I need to explore it. So I studied economics at university, did many other things before getting to where I am now. I'm a qualified primary school teacher. So I taught in schools in London for a couple of years, which was
had
amazing.
No idea.
Yeah. And I this was kind of all along the way to like finding what is it that I really want to do? What is it that feels right? I worked in management consulting for a little while. So for one of the big four professional services firms, just for a little while, I was like, okay, this isn't for me. I think I left after 7 or 8 months. And that was a job that, everyone thinks is like, oh my God, that's the best job in the world. But it just wasn't right for me. What else? I spent some time working as a dancer. So these all feel like very different things to other people, right? Dancer, management consultant, primary school teacher. I then explored setting up a small business in dance events where I led kids for their dance birthday parties. I taught wedding dance lessons. That was my first experience of kind of creating a small business. Then I fell in love with yoga, went to India, did my first yoga teacher training. And the more that I got into self-development and spirituality, I realized I wanted to work with people one-to-one, which is why I started coaching. And I did a diploma in transformational coaching, and I did a lot of work on myself as well. So that's kind of the career journey. And it's funny because for a lot of people, they're like, so many different things. But I see that we are all like, we're not just one thing, all of those different experiences that I've had are all different parts of me. And it's been a really important part of my process to allow all of the different parts of me to be seen and to be expressed. And nothing is ever wasted. All of those experiences help me so much with what I do right now, actually. Teaching 7-year-olds is like the biggest, like, oh my God, like so many of the things that I feel like I'm good at now are because I had that experience teaching kids.
Because we're all 7-year-olds at heart.
Yeah. Absolutely. So holding space for adults now is so easy. If you can like teach 30 kids in London, 37-year-olds, then you're like, you can teach anyone. So I just feel like every experience is an unfolding onto the next. And that's why I always say when people get so stressed out about like, what's my purpose? What's my like one thing that I've got to do right now? It's like, take some of the pressure off and follow what you feel is right. Follow that tap on the shoulder of like something interesting to explore there. And maybe you explore and it's not right. That's okay. You've explored it. Like, what's the next thing? And so that's kind of been my journey up till now. So super grateful.
I love that. How did you make it to Bali though? I'm super.
Oh yeah. I missed that question.
Because that's where we met, and that's where you were our yoga instructor. So that's why I just wanted to hear.
Totally. So up until Bali, I was in London and I was teaching yoga and I was just starting coaching. And my partner at the time wanted to come to Bali. And he asked me, would you like to come? And I was kind of like, well, why not? It was very much this would be silly not to go. This would be silly not to try it out. London, I love London, but London will always be here. And I can always do the things that I was doing then in London. I knew I could always go back to them if Bali didn't work out. And I think that's what I always ask myself as well when you're trying to make decisions that feel big. Like what's the worst that could happen, or like why not? Like what's the why not? And for me, there wasn't really a why not. I just was like, okay, let's do this thing. So went to Bali, and I ended up living there for over a year, and then COVID's. I'm kind of back in London for a little bit, and I'll see where I'll go after that. So and that was an incredible experience living there.
Amazing. So coaching for you and yoga, is this something, do you feel like your journey is going to take you elsewhere after this? Or do you feel like you kind of found the thing where you're like, wow, I think like I think the universe built me for this and I'm going to stick in here. Maybe it's going to look different in a couple years. You know, you never know how things are going to change and how you're going to change and evolve. But like, how do you currently feel about what you're doing today versus what you were doing before with all the various different professions that you were in? I'm just curious to hear.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful question. I think I feel way more compared to, you know, when I was a school teacher or management consulting, or even like I feel way more like this really feels like me now. Like this really, really feels like me. You know, I get signs that I'm like, this is right, when you feel like you're making a really positive impact. And also it feels like a really incredible way to use all of my skills, because I can use my teaching skills. I can use my dance background, because I teach dance classes as well sometimes in the self-love space, which has been really beautiful. So I'm able to use lots of my different kind of skills in my current work, which feels incredible. That being said, I never want to restrict myself to like, I have to do this forever. So I'm open. If at some point it doesn't feel right and something else feels more right, then like, okay, you know, let's see. For now, this feels good.
Good. I'm just super curious. What do you think gets people to restrict themselves when it comes to like what it is that they do with their life? Because I see this struggle a lot, especially with my female entrepreneurs that I serve. They are so ashamed of being multi-passionate, where they feel like it is something that's hindering their success, because we're taught that like you got to find your one thing. And I am all about finding, you know, your niche and really serving your niche. But I also think that like the illusion that you have to pick this one niche and stay in this niche forever is a little delusional. And we as human beings, as Sabi mentioned, which is so beautiful, like we're human beings. There's so many different parts to us. We're not just this one thing. I'm curious, like, you know, for the women who are struggling right now, who are like, but I love this and I love this and I love this and I love this. Like, what is some of your advice to help them kind of like feel normal, and what should they do with all of the various things that they're passionate about?
Yeah, I think sometimes it's a genuine, I have all of these things that I love. And I think sometimes people will also use that as a bit of an excuse to not actually get started with anything. I see that quite a lot. That feeling of I'm stuck because I just don't really know which way to go. Isn't always I'm stuck. Sometimes it's I'm actually avoiding avoiding elevating myself to the next level. So sometimes it's a like, obviously on the subconscious level, a mechanism to kind of keep you where you are. Not all of the time, but I do see that sometimes. Otherwise, I think it's just scary to pick one thing when you have many different passions and things that you like to do. What I have noticed in myself is I was really, so this is just on a personal level. I remember when I was wanting to get more specific with my niche. So in the UK, we pronounce it niche in coaching. Yeah, for anyone that's American, it's like, huh? What did she say?
So I have had so many funny arguments, like not actual arguments with people, because I was promoting a program for my mentor. And it's called I call it Nail Your Niche. And then like half of us are calling it niche, half of us are calling it niche. And I'm like, it's niche. So I don't really care what you call it. Like it's not about what you call it, it's about what you do with it.
Yeah, totally. So I was in a kind of a stumbling block with getting specific with what my niche was in the coaching world, because I just wanted to be able to help everyone. I wanted to be able to help everyone, and I knew I wanted to, you know, focus more, help work with women more, but I didn't really know what thing. And as I decided or just realized that everything that I was helping women with really was to do with self-love. Like really that was the kind of the glue that linked all of the things I was doing together. And as I got more specific, okay, I'm going to focus on self-love, that actually then started to open things up. Like, okay, I'm a self-love coach, and I guide women to love themselves, to feel deeply worthy of their desires, so that they can, you know, have the relationship, the career they love, the business. But then once I got more specific with my niche, I was actually able to use all of my different skills. I'm still able to teach yoga because yoga is a massive part of self-love still.
Yeah.
I teach a lot, and teaching is a big part of one of my, older skills. As I mentioned before, I was a school teacher. I'm starting to teach dance a lot more within, because it's such an incredible way to help women feel really worthy and empowered. And so I just realized I'm able to use so many of my different passions the more actually specific I got with my niche, which was really interesting for me. So I think you never know what might happen when you get more specific. And also you can change, things aren't fixed. If it doesn't work, that's okay. I think we get so stuck because we're like, if I choose, that's it, I'm done. Right. But it's not always the case.
And we're so afraid of something that is counterintuitively helping us. It's like, this is the thing. If you just go into that cave that you're so afraid of going into, you'll find that it's not actually a cave, but a passageway to this big open meadow on the other side. I don't know if that metaphor made sense, but that's how I just see it. It's it opens you up to a whole new world where you're like, wait a second, everything that has ever happened to me in my life, every single occupation or even job, I attribute my 9 to 5 that I got when I moved to LA and I was on my grandma's couch to being an expert on getting anything done on the phone, because I was on the phone. I was a receptionist on the phone 24/7. Well, from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, Monday through Friday. And I used to be so afraid of talking to people on the phone. I could talk to you in person. I could talk to you via text, but as a phone call, it ain't going to happen. And for some reason, maybe it's a story around introverts aren't good on the phone. I had to force myself to be the best person I could possibly be on the phone to talk to these doctors and hospitals and whatever. And it's just so interesting. We often forget that everything, even what we're doing right now, even if it feels for Sabi and for me, it feels so part of our purpose and so part of what is most in alignment with us. How do we know? Who are we to say that this is not actually preparing us for something even bigger? Yeah. Right? It's
and
so
how exciting
fascinating.
That's so exciting. Oh my God, I love what I'm doing now. Imagine if this is in preparation for the next step. That next step is going to be incredible.
Yes. Yeah, oh my God. So, Sabi, you are just as big on manifestation as I am, and you talk a lot about the big link between self-love and how it relates to manifestation. Can you dive into what that link is and how it shows up and how we can basically make it work for us in our lives in manifesting our dream life?
Yeah, I love this. And I think it's often a missing step or something that people forget about. But it's really, for me, it's if you don't feel fully worthy of what you're desiring, how can you actually believe that thing is possible for you? Because, to believe that whatever it is that you want to manifest is possible, to really believe it, you've got to feel worthy of that thing. So for me, that's the link. And then if you think about this idea of having to be in the energy of what you're calling in, that's self-love for me, being the one you're looking for. If I'll give the example of a relationship, you're really desiring a partner, starting from the place of, can you be, rather than I just want the partner, all of those qualities that you're desiring in that partner, can you work on being that for you? For you, from a place of self-love, can you get into the energy of those things that you're desiring, for you? Look at all of the qualities that you're desiring in a partner, write them all down, and then take another look at that list, and then start to cross off the ones that you think you also meet, right? And then any that are left, you're I'm desiring this thing in a partner, but I'm not actually being it myself. I'm desiring a partner that has really great communication, but I'm actually not being it for it myself. How can I attract someone that has amazing communication if that's where my stumbling block is? Because we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. We attract the energy that we're vibrating right now. And so for me, that's self-love. I need to work on my communication skills in that example for me, because that's actually going to make me a better human. That's actually deepening my self-love and raising myself up for me. And I can, for a moment, actually forget about that desire of having the partner and work on me for me. And that's the space that we can
Yes.
then really be cool in what we desire.
That's what I call like the paradox of manifestation. It's like you have to want it, but like not need it at the same time. It's like it's a desire in like, this would be awesome, but I'm not desperate for it because everything I want about it, all of the feelings, which most of the desires that we have, it's for some sort of a feeling. And so if we can give ourselves that feeling and those qualities, as Sabi said, then we don't actually need the man or the woman, right? Then in that space, they actually attract. You know, something that you just mentioned, I talk a lot about how, you know, women especially, because that's my niche too, how we relate to money and how money is a relationship. And I just realized, you know, you're describing all these things and I'm like, why do we want money? We want money for safety, for security. We want money for freedom. We want money for joy or whatever it is that money brings to us. Wait a freaking second. We could also work on those things and be that for us. What can we do to make ourselves feel safe? What can we do to make ourselves feel secure and worthy? And what can we do to give ourselves freedom? It's so fascinating. In that space, then you're like, I have everything. I don't need money. And then in that space of not needing money, that's how you receive money. So that's just been a light bulb that I just processed that I wanted to share because that's such a great point. What are some of the common blocks that you see women have when it comes to feeling worthy of the life that they want to live, and how can they overcome these blocks, or at least start the process of overcoming these blocks?
Yeah, super important question. A big part of my work is looking at the limiting beliefs. I'm sure it's a massive part of your work too. The limiting beliefs that we have that have lived for God knows how long, for years, for decades.
Would you equate the blocks as being limiting beliefs? Is that what they are? Or is there a deeper element to it?
I feel like a lot of, not necessarily always, but I'm maybe I can think of a specific example. I feel like a lot of the time, most of the barriers to what we're desiring can be translated as some kind of limiting belief, some kind of belief or thought process that we've been holding on to for a long time on the subconscious level, because of some kind of, most of the time, past experience and that hasn't yet been processed, that has been held in, that we have then acted upon continuously without even realizing. So yeah, for a lot of the women that I work with, feeling really worthy of what they're desiring, to feel really worthy of what they're desiring, it's looking at what are those blocks and limiting beliefs that are stopping you from feeling worthy of the partner, or feeling worthy of business success, or feeling like it's safe to have the home that you, whatever it is. And sometimes they aren't always, I'm just giving examples of external goals. Sometimes the goals are inner goals of just feeling good, of feeling more joyful. But yeah, a lot of the work is on kind of limiting beliefs.
And how can we like start that process? Is it awareness? Like, is it going within and just being like, why is it that I don't believe that I'm worthy of this? Is it just like asking ourselves questions? Is there like a technique? Like what is something that you do with your, like, you don't have to give like your whole blueprint now, but just like, how do you start that process just to give our listeners something actionable that they can do today in uncovering all of those limiting beliefs?
Awareness is always a good place to start. And I think the reason why so many people don't ever even get to doing this work is because they're not aware that these beliefs have been underneath the surface, ruling the show for their whole life. So absolutely, awareness of knowing, oh my goodness, like I don't actually feel safe to have X, or I don't feel like I'm worthy of being loved, or it's too late for me now to fulfill my dreams, or I'm trying to think of some other really, really common ones that come up. At the root of most of these, in some kind of way, shape, or form, is maybe I'm not enough, or I'm how I am right now isn't quite enough. Something needs to change. I need to change this one thing before I'll get to that one thing. And I often see the total link between the limiting beliefs that we have in relationships to the limiting beliefs that we have in business. I often see that, this idea of like the perfectionism kind of belief of, yeah, I'm just waiting to like get my website perfect first, or like I can't do this yet because I'm not ready. And in a relationship, that could look like I'm not ready to go dating yet because like I need to lose weight first, or I need to something needs to change. Like I need to do all of this. I need to do work on myself before I start to date again. And these are just silly, like small examples. But right at the root of both of them, on the business side and on the kind of relationship side, is how I am right now isn't actually totally enough. Something in me needs to change before I'm ready to do these things. And that is getting in our way. So yeah, that was a long way round of saying awareness of what those limiting beliefs are as a first step. And then after that, start to notice when they show up. So as an actionable thing, I like to encourage people to become more aware of their triggers. So as you said, that there's so much work into this, but it's something that your listeners can do like today is take a piece of pen and a paper. And whenever that limiting belief comes up, notice where the triggering moments are. So say, for example, your listeners, lots of them might be in this kind of work as well. A limiting belief they might have is, I'm not as good as her, like that manifestation coach, right? Like every time they scroll Instagram and see this manifestation coach or this person talking about that triggers that belief of like, I'm not as good as that. I couldn't do that. So your task is to notice those triggering moments. What are the moments in your life that bring up that realization or that limiting belief, and start to note all of those different times down. So like scrolling Instagram could be one. Opening up a magazine could be one. Looking at your emails could be another. And then when you've got all that probably long list of triggers, you can go into each situation with the awareness that limiting belief might come up. And when you know that it might come up, you're more able to catch it when it comes, you're more able to catch it when it comes, so it doesn't actually impact you
I love that. I love that. I think triggers are such a great signal from our subconscious mind of like, pay attention. It's not an accident that you're feeling this way. It's not an accident that you, like for me, when I get triggered, I feel it in the space between my heart and my throat. It's like an energy blockage between my heart and my throat. And I don't know if everyone feels that way, but when I feel some energy just kind of like pierce me, it feels like I don't think I've ever described this, by the way. Like I'm just having like downloads through you. Yeah. So thank you for holding space for these downloads that I'm getting, let alone what the downloads you guys are getting listening to this. Like it feels like a dagger right here. And whenever I feel that dagger, I don't see it as like, oh, I'm feeling this way for no reason. There's always a reason. And it is not something to be ashamed of. It is not something to create a new belief. Sometimes we have triggers about our triggers, feelings about our feelings, thoughts about our thoughts, beliefs about our beliefs. And that just makes an even bigger mess that we have to uncover. And if you don't add to the mess, you'll be able to go into the original mess and just be like, okay, what is going on here? And really looking at that and seeing that a trigger is just a physical manifestation in the body of inner work that needs to be done around whatever it is, self-love, worthiness, not being enough, business, whatever it is. And speaking of triggers and speaking of deep inner work, Sabi, I feel so honored to have you on this podcast because I do want to go into some very important things that I know that you have right now on your heart to share in regards to everything that's going on currently in our industry, the wellness, spirituality, manifestation industry, self-love, whatever you want to call it. And you wrote a very beautiful, eye-opening post. You wrote actually two, and for some reason my brain didn't connect that they're part one and part two. I shared one of them, not the first one, but you did share two posts relating to everything that's going on right now in terms of race and white privilege and white fragility, where you wrote in the quote, and I just want to read the quote, white people in the spiritual and wellness industry, you are part of the problem, but you can also be part of the solution. Can you, and I just want you to speak from personal experience. Like, I know you're not like an expert on anti-racism, but you are a mixed race woman who has experienced your own, traumas around this. And I was wondering if you can dive a little bit more into like what you see to be the problem, and then what you also see just from your own perspective to be the solution for this as well.
Yeah, thank you. And this has been really eye-opening for me. With all of this coming up in the world right now, so many different things have been coming up for me. And one of them, I'm actually, this is not the answer to your question yet, but I realize I'm going off track a little. One of the things I've been realizing is this trauma that's been in my body, actually. This, on like Monday, Tuesday, I was feeling like pain and achy and like really tense in my body in a way like I haven't for a long time. I didn't realize why at first. And then I realized that it was because I've had so many years of like suppressing my voice, not really being able to speak about this stuff, and feeling a lot of pain and frustration internally, because when you speak about race, normally it gets pushed down, right? It gets kind of pushed away. People get defensive. So I've spent so long not being able to speak about it without people getting defensive, that it's now starting to, the physical manifestation of that is now starting to come out. So that's been like super powerful. So yeah, in the post I was talking about the problem that we see, that I've seen, and experienced as a mixed race woman. My dad's Black, my mum's white, of always being the only person of color in the room, and not the only, right? I don't want, I grew up in London, so London's very, very diverse as a city. But within the diverse city, the yoga industry or the spirituality industry is a very, very white world. And it's interesting how quickly I became, I kind of got used to that, used to being one of the minority in a city which is actually very diverse.
Interesting.
I would go into a yoga space, and there wouldn't be that many people that looked like me. And would go to an event, a self-development event, and there wouldn't be that many people that looked like me. I would go to a yoga teacher training and do a training. And again, so it was just like in all of these different activities, there wouldn't be that many people that looked the way that I looked. And then when I look at things online and I see the pictures of events and retreats, it would just be a continuous reminder that there aren't that many people that look like me in this work. And that's kind of, it plays out for me on such a subconscious level. Like I almost forget that it's a thing because I've got so used to it. But the more people I've been speaking with about that topic this week, I'm realizing and I'm remembering this is a problem, because while it was okay for me, like while I was able to still come into this industry, there are so many people that think maybe I can't get into yoga. Like they wouldn't understand me in that room. I don't think I can go to that event. I wouldn't fit in there. There are no pictures of people that look like me in that yoga teacher training. So yeah, I don't think I would fit in. So is this real feeling of like, would I fit in? Would I be accepted there? If I do this training with that teacher, with that coach, would they really understand my life experiences? So that was kind of like right, we need to talk about this. We really need to talk about this. And why for me it was such a problem in this industry is because this is the industry where we talk about love and light and possibility for all, and everyone's welcome. Like this is the industry where we're talking about that, and yet this is the industry that is so white and not actually that inclusive.
There's such a disconnect between the front-facing message, but then there's something going on subconsciously that we're not talking about, that for many of us, for the first time ever, unfortunately, and that goes to show that white privilege is real, is the fact that we're just talking about this for so many of us. I'm not saying everybody. I know that there's a lot of you that maybe have been doing this work for a long time and have been contributing to the solution in the best way possible. So no one's to blame here in particular, but I would say the majority, it's so interesting. And I'm also someone who is, unfortunately like seeing this for the first time. And I've been mentioning, like, I'm doing my best to deal with my own, what they call white guilt, right? Where I don't want to, like, no one needs to hear how guilty I feel and like all of these things. I just want to be part of the solution. And I'm like focusing on like, okay, what's the action steps we can take? And it's so interesting, as you mentioned, like there is such a disconnect between like, we're all love and light and everyone's welcome. And it's all about love and acceptance and you are enough and you are worthy, right? We hear that. That's like on Instagram 24/7, like everybody's worthy, everyone's equal, blah, 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 blah. But it's not manifesting for some reason. And so there are subconscious biases or subconscious judgments or subconscious beliefs that are taking, it even goes, I'm telling you, Sabi, you're giving me so many downloads again, because now I'm realizing the subconscious mind is responsible for 95% of your reality. And if these are the beliefs and biases that you have on a subconscious level, of course, this is what's going to show up above your conscious message, above your conscious decisions, above your conscious, whatever logic that you are, you know, spewing out or writing about or creating or talking about. It's going to be the unconscious stuff that's going to come through, which I never thought of before. Wow. So fascinating. Yeah, keep going. Keep going.
Yeah, I love that you said that. That is so, that's why this topic is so complex.
Yes.
Because people have not even realized that this was a thing, you know, that people have not even realized that, like, people just thought being racist was saying a bad word, you know, or like
Right.
people thought that racism was the obvious, aggressive, overt racism. People did not realize that they've been living their lives. And I say people again, I'm generalizing, so, you know, generalization for the sake of this chat, did not realize that a lot of the ways they've been operating for a long time has been under the system where these beliefs are there. And for me, that's why a lot of suppressed trauma maybe has come up, because it's like this thing, all of these things that I knew forever, you know, forever, is finally come to the surface for everybody else. And I haven't been able to speak about it with my white friends without them getting defensive. So years or a lifetime of a white friend saying, no, I don't see color, or like, no, that didn't happen to you because you're not white. You know, all of these things that people didn't realize were wrong to say, they're now realizing. And so all of those years of conversations where I've tried my hardest to be like, no, don't say that. And then I've realized now, oh my goodness, all those years where I tried to speak gently to people, just so that they would listen and educate themselves. So for me, when I've been feeling frustrated and angry, I haven't allowed myself to get angry about it. I've tone policed my voice and my manner and spoken about it really softly so that I'd hopefully be heard, often not the case. And so I realized years of pushing that stuff down, and now it all coming up to the light. That's been a lot for me personally to kind of process.
Yeah, this is so eye-opening. You know, you mentioned like most people think that being racist is like being overtly racist, like you're saying a bad word or this or that. I'm just curious, like, how does it show up? You know, not necessarily overtly, but what's the opposite of that?
Yeah, and I think so
it?
for me, lots of this hasn't been overt, you know, because I'm a mixed race woman. I have pale skin. I haven't had a lot of overt, really aggressive racism. So for me, lots of people have, and I don't want to downplay anyone that has really struggled with that. For me, it's been more subtle, but more subtle doesn't mean easy, you know. More subtle means when people say, no, where are you really from? And I'm like, I'm from London, I'm from the UK. And they're like, but no, where really? More subtle is when I'm like, or when they say, you look so exotic. And I'm kind of like, yeah, that's kind of nice. Maybe it's not actually, you know, maybe it's
sounds a little backhanded.
When I'm at an airport and I get searched and I'm like, and then this doesn't happen all the time, but that question of that white person next to me didn't get searched. Is it random or is it because I'm not white, you know? So these kind of things, those are just a few examples, but these things that go on in the background for like forever, right? Forever, without them even being questioned. And then when you do pull someone up on them, they get so defensive because they don't want to be racist, right? They get so defensive that you end up shrinking your voice.
Yeah.
So actually, it's really, really deep, this topic, so deep.
Very, very deep. And, I'm just curious, like you mentioned, you have an ex-partner, right? You interviewed your ex-partner on a live
Yeah.
stream, which I'm going to make you
Yeah.
guys all watch that, just so you know, on
Okay.
Sabi's Instagram. But before we go and dive into where you can follow Sabi and everything, something that stood out to me was, for instance, Bali. It's like this spiritual wellness, like island, right? That it's become for mostly white people. And you were talking about how you and your ex-partner felt like you were the only two. I know you're mixed race. I don't know what he is, so I don't want to generalize, but you were the only two Black people, Black yoga instructors on the island. And I'm just curious, like, what did that feel like for you guys? And like, what was that experience like? And once again, just kind of bringing it back to like, how do you see in your perspective where, how can we be part of the solution? Like, what can we do that goes beyond just educating ourselves, going beyond just listening to this podcast? Like, what are like some just tangible, actionable things that you see that would make a difference, whatever that difference might be?
Yeah, thank you. So the first bit on being in Bali, and being the only few teachers, it's weirdly how quickly you almost kind of normalize it. Like, oh yeah, this is just how it is. But deep down, there is a feeling of like, like, why is this how it is? So I realized, and recently more than ever, I realized how tired, how exhausted I was with kind of holding down the fort, with like, why aren't there more of us? I think it was tiring, wanting things to kind of change, and then they just weren't. And it's like this exists in this industry because this exists in the world. This exists in the self-development industry and yoga because this exists in the world. And it was just a tiring, frustrating feeling, but I don't think I realized how frustrated I was until these last few weeks. All of this stuff has been coming up. So yeah, definitely go watch the IGTV I did. It's funny, actually. We did the video today. It's very real and raw, emotionally, but also his Bali internet is cutting out like in and out. And I think it adds to the rawness, to be honest, but it's super, super
this
powerful.
This is real life. This is not scripted. Even my Wi-Fi is cutting out.
Yeah. It was so real life. And in terms of action steps, there's so many things that can be done. And obviously, I know you mentioned education, and the reason why that's so important is because if you do all of the things, like, and for example, you're doing such a great job already, you want to have more people of color on your podcast, and I know there will be more things that you'll do as well. But what you are doing, which is so important that everyone needs to do first, is actually to start educating yourself. Because if you forget that step and you're just like, yeah, I'll hire some Black people, yeah, I'll have some people of color on my podcast, and you don't do the education part, like,
you don't know why you're doing it.
You don't know why you're doing it. And if you don't know why you're doing something, that is not going to be sustainable. At some point, you're going to forget and stop. So like, please educate yourself. And it starts with a book. It starts with a webinar. Remembering that this is not a one book and you're done thing. This is a commitment for the rest of your life. And it's almost how I talk about self-love. Self-love is not like you're there and you're done and that's it. You've got to commit to self-love every single day for the rest of your life. And learning about a topic as complex as this is so similar. It's like you need to commit to learning about this forever and show up for it daily. So education first, and then look at, where are you showing up? What platforms do you have? How inclusive are you being? Podcasts, following more people of color in this industry, collaborating, studios, hiring more people of color, trainings, and these can be any kind of trainings, yoga teacher trainings, big self-development events. Like, have a look at your retreats, have a look at your photos, and take a look at the photo and see how many Black people, how many people of color there are. I was actually a little triggered into this topic because I saw some beautiful pictures of someone's retreat. And I was like, a white person would look at that photo and think, that looks like a beautiful retreat, amazing, amazing place, amazing venue. I looked at that photo and thought, that looks like an amazing retreat, an amazing venue. And there are no people that look like me there, you know?
Yeah.
And there's no woman of color. There's not a Black woman there. And it's like this additional thought I didn't realize how often it comes up without me really, it's been there, but I haven't actually noticed it so much until now, but it's always been there. So look at those photos, look at who's coming to your events, and see how your marketing needs to be shifted. See how you actually need to shift how you present your work and your services to make them more inclusive. And I think this is such a complex topic. It's not like here's a list of things to do.
Right. It's not a checklist. And like, as you're talking, I'm like thinking, you know, how many of our listeners, including myself, have read books on quantum physics, manifestation, self-love, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, you didn't just read one book. And so why do you think that just reading one book about this is going to seep in subconsciously on that subconscious level? You guys need that repetition. And something else that you mentioned, you know, inviting more people of color on the podcast and stages and events and platforms and stuff. And something that I was also thinking about that I'm going to take no credit for because I've seen this on the internet over this last week. But that really stood out to me is also, as a white person, being an advocate for the Black, Indigenous, people of color community, where you are yourself, when you are being asked to step on a stage or you're being asked to be a part of a brand, like let's say you're an influencer that's going to influence people to buy like a certain product, or you are going on to a podcast or going on a stage or whatever, like also seeing, are they inclusive of people of color on their platforms, and bringing it up to them, being like, is it just white people, or is there going to be more diversity here? And also taking a stand for being like, you know, this looks awesome, but personally for me, it doesn't align with my values to be just another white person in the mix. So therefore I'm going to politely decline. And for many people, I know that this like fear comes up for a lot of people who are afraid to speak out on this, people who are still silent about this. You're afraid of how this is going to make your brand look, or you're afraid of how many friends you're going to lose or how many opportunities you're going to lose. But I promise you, like, the universe is going to fucking reward you for this work, because the universe is about inclusivity, right? It's people who discriminate. It's the ego that discriminates. And when you operate from the ego and when you just operate from this judgmental space, then there's no rewards in it. You're just going to create more of that. And you should take a stand for what's right. And just so you guys know, like, this work is not to be done for any reward, first and foremost. This work, like, we should have a world where this work, like, it shouldn't even be a thing in the first place, but it is a thing. Yeah. And so we're going to do our best to dismantle white privilege, dismantle racism, dismantle all of these things that are creating this world. But like, you have to take a stand, and you have to take a look at the people that you also surround yourself with, and what are they doing to be a part of the solution as well? Because, you know, there's that quote that we've all heard a million times: you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself the most with. So look at their values around anti-racism as well. That would definitely be something that I would encourage you guys to look at. Sabi, you have a book that you've been recommending. I see that there's a particular book that stands out to you, at least for right now, that you've been recommending to your white friends and white followers. What book is that, and why have you chosen to kind of like give people an opportunity to start there with their education?
I've been recommending the Me and White Supremacy book, and there's so many books I'm sure that are great too. My reason with recommending one book is because I know how people work. And if you give them a list of 5 or 10 different books to read, they're like, yeah, okay, maybe tomorrow.
Right.
If you give them one book and say, please read this, and they've seen that 3 times, they're like, okay, I'll go and get that book. So that's really why I said one book, because I'm sure there are other books that are incredible. But I'm actually reading it myself, more for my own education and just to get breaking this topic to white people, really. So I'm reading it myself, and it's a book that really puts into words all of the things that I've expressed in my lived experience, and it puts it into words. So for me, it's been eye-opening reading it from my perspective. So I know it's a great book, but it's not the only book. Right. But encouraging people to read a book is better than not at all.
Yeah. I'm about halfway through that book, and I really love it because of it started from an Instagram challenge that was filled with all of these prompts, and prompts are a great way for anyone that journals. When you have a journal prompt, it gives you an opportunity to do some self-exploration. And I really love the book in its format. It's very easy to follow. It's very easy to understand, and it's very insightful, and it's very at times difficult to read, in the sense of like, if you're someone who is getting triggered, is getting defensive, doesn't understand, like it's going to push you outside your comfort zone. But guys, nothing good ever came from your comfort zone anyway. So I also would recommend that book as well. And that's actually the book that I started with. And I'm the type of person who reads a little bit out of every book. Like today, I'm going to read 2 more chapters in this book. Tomorrow, I'm going to read 2 more chapters in this book. And so I've been reading like 3 books at once, but I made the most amount of progress in Me. And it's called Me and White Supremacy, for those of you who didn't hear the title. And it's by, I can't pronounce the author's name. It's Layla F. Saad. Do you know how to pronounce it?
I'm not sure if it's Saad or Saad.
Okay, it's SAAD. That's why we're confused. But you guys can find it somewhere on the internet. And I also recommend you guys looking for bookstores that are Black owned in order to purchase these books, just to make your dollars and your efforts in this work go even further than just buying off of Amazon. Sabi, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Like, you are such a light to this world, and I am so grateful and honored to have you be a part of this conversation, open this dialogue with me, so you can inspire people to do this work. And I wanted to ask, where can people find you? Where can we learn more about you and your work and your services and all the incredible things that you're doing in this world?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, firstly. It's been such a joy to chat with you. My platform I'm on mostly is Instagram. It's just my name, Sabi.Kerr. I share lots on there. So yeah, you can find me there.
Awesome. So that live stream, even though Sabi recorded it this morning, 4 a.m. LA time. So I have not seen it yet. I'm going to go ahead and watch it, because we started this podcast at 9 a.m. And by the time this uploads, it may already be down her feed, but it's in your IGTV, right? So it'll be in that section.
It's in my IGTV. In my IGTV and on my main feed too. Yeah.
Perfect. So you guys can find it. And then go look at her post, go look at her. There's a story highlight that I'm almost made all the way through. I'm still working through on and
love it.
Any story that Sabi shares or anything like that, you guys are going to get some really good information. And also, as you're listening to this, take a screenshot of this episode and tag at Sabi, SABI.Kerr, Kerr. And I'm going to put the link in the show notes. So don't worry, you guys. Like, if you miss a letter or anything like that, it'll take you directly to her Instagram. And go ahead and tag her and just send her all the love and support, and share with her through your tag the breakthroughs, the aha moments, any downloads that you had. And if you want to share how you're committing to being a part of this solution. Sabi, thank you so much once again for coming on here, for sharing your work, your energy, for joining me in this dialogue around diversity and inclusion in the spiritual and wellness world. And I cannot wait to cross paths with you, whether it's in Bali or UK or US or wherever the hell we meet again. Like, I'm just so excited to cross paths with you again.
Me too. Can't wait. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you so much. All right, you guys, you heard from Sabi. Go ahead, follow her. You guys take a screenshot, tag her, do all the things, get educated, get the book, do the work, and I will catch you guys in the next episode. Mwah. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. If you absolutely loved what you heard today, be sure to share it with me by leaving a review on iTunes so that I can keep the good stuff coming your way. If you aren't already following me on social media, come soak up the extra inspiration on Instagram by following @ManifestationBabe or visiting my website at manifestationbabe.com. I love and adore you so much and can't wait to connect with you in the next episode. In the meantime, go out there and manifest some magic.